Have you ever heard of the man who stood when the world fell? In the winter of 1258, the Mongol tide swallowed Baghdad whole. Libraries that held 1,000 years of memory were torn open like wounded chests. Ink bled into the Tigris until the river ran black and then red. The caliph's palace fell silent, its lamps blown out by a storm of iron. Minarets cracked, domes burned, and the night learned the color of ash. Scholars, jurists, craftsmen, names erased faster than they could be spoken. Across deserts and mountains, the scream of Baghdad traveled like a curse. In Cairo, men whispered that no wall could stand, that all gates would open. Egypt trembled, but one pair of eyes did not. A Mamluk slave, stripped of homeland and name, watched the horizon as if waiting for a verdict. He had survived the ruin of empires before. He knew the taste of loss and the weight of duty. In his chest smoldered a vow no conqueror could chain. When the Mongols demanded surrender, he did not answer with ink or seal. He answered with a roar, and the world heard his name, Qutuz. He came from the ashes of Khwarezm, a land once bright with scholars and silk, before it was swallowed by the Mongol storm. When Genghis Khan's riders crossed the Oxus River, they left no walls standing. In that chaos, a child was torn from his home, his parents killed or scattered into the wind. The boy was sold, taken west through caravans and slave markets, his name forgotten by men, but not by destiny. He was bought in Syria, then sold again in Egypt, where a new kind of army was being forged, the Mamluks. They were not born Egyptians, nor Arabs, nor nobles. They were slaves, captives taken young, converted, and trained from childhood to fight and obey. In the schools of the citadel, they learned the Quran, the bow, and the sword. They were raised without families, loyal only to their faith and their fellow warriors. In a world ruled by dynasties, they were proof that courage could be bred from chains. Among them, the boy from Khwarezm grew into a soldier. He was strong, precise, silent. They called him Qutuz, the still one. He studied strategy as others studied poetry. When others rested, he trained. When others feared, he prayed. Decades passed. Egypt changed rulers as fast as the Nile changed tides. Sultan Aibak rose, married the widow queen Shajar al-Dur, and was later murdered in the intrigues of the palace. Plots and betrayals tore the court apart. While emirs fought for thrones, Qutuz fought for purpose. By 1254, he had become vice sultan, commander of the Mamluk Guard. A man of discipline among chaos, he ruled not through bloodline but through merit, and he ruled well. Then from the east came the sound of thunder. Baghdad had fallen, the caliph was dead. The Mongols had reached Damascus. Their letters arrived in Cairo, demanding Egypt's surrender. The emirs trembled. Merchants hid their gold. Priests called for prayer. But one man rose and spoke, "If we kneel today, the Nile itself will drown in shame." Qutuz ordered the envoys executed, and their heads hung upon Cairo's gates, a message written not in ink, but in iron. Under his command, Egypt began to awaken. Blacksmiths hammered through the night, riders trained in the desert. The call to arms echoed from mosque to fortress. The Mamluks, once slaves from every corner of the world, now stood as Egypt's shield. Qutuz walked among them not as a king, but as one of their own. He reminded them of where they came from, of chains, of hunger, of the long road that had made them men of steel. He told them that victory was not promised to bloodlines or empires, but to those who believed. As the sun rose over Cairo, he swore a vow before his soldiers. The world may burn, but we will not bow. If Allah wills, these hands that once carried shackles shall now carry swords. From that moment, the Mamluks ceased to be slaves. They became lions, and at their head rode Qutuz, the man who would face the greatest army on earth. The smoke of Baghdad had not yet faded when Hulagu Khan turned his armies west. Syria, Damascus, and Egypt were next. At his side rode the general Kitbuka, fierce, loyal, and utterly certain that God had given the Mongols the world. Not since the days of Jalal ad-Din had anyone dared stand against them. But from the sands of Egypt, a new sword was rising. Saif ad-Din Qutuz. News raced across deserts. The caliph was dead, the Abbasids gone, and now the crescent trembled under hooves. In Cairo, Saif ad-Din Qutuz listened, not with fear, but with focus. Among his captains was a name that would echo beside his own, Baybars, the Panther of Egypt, a strategist born in exile, scarred by slavery, hungry for purpose. Saif ad-Din Qutuz saw in him not rebellion, but fire. Envoys from the Mongols arrived once more, bearing threats. "Submit," they said, "or you will share Baghdad's fate." Qutuz's reply was silent steel. The heads of the envoys hung above Cairo's gate. Egypt prepared, forges roared, prayers rose, and under the desert sun the Mamluk army was reborn. No longer slaves, lions in the service of Allah. In the spring of 1260, the army moved north. Qutuz commanding the center, Baybars leading the vanguard. Through Sinai and Palestine they rode. Into lands already broken by Mongol fire, they reached the valley of Ain Jalut, the spring of Goliath. The land was narrow, the hills steep, the perfect trap. Baybars struck first, a feigned retreat drawing the Mongols into the narrow plain. Then, from the dust, Saif ad-Din Qutuz unleashed his hidden ranks. In the chaos, the Mamluk line wavered. Qutuz tore off his helmet, raised his sword, and shouted one cry that split the sky. "Allahu Akbar walillah alhamd." Steel met steel, hooves thundered, and Kitbuka's horde broke against the wall of men they thought were slaves. When the dust cleared, the Mongol general lay dead. For the first time since the age of Genghis Khan, the Mongol tide had been broken. Under the banner of Saif ad-Din Qutuz, the world learned that even the storm could bleed. From Cairo to Samarkand, the earth whispered his name, and far to the north, Berka Khan, the Muslim grandson of Genghis Khan, rejoiced. Because in that moment, two worlds aligned. From the Volga to the Nile, believers stood against tyranny, and for the first time since Jalal ad-Din, the storm had been stopped. But victory is a crown of thorns. On the road back to Cairo, Saif ad-Din Qutuz was betrayed and struck down by his own men. Yet even in death, his roar echoed. He had ruled for less than a year, yet he changed the fate of a world. From a slave in chains to the man who stopped the Mongols, his name would live wherever freedom is won through faith. The desert night was still when the storm returned, not from the Mongols, but from within. Only weeks had passed since the victory at Ain Jalut, yet already the lions of Egypt were whispering in the dark. Saif ad-Din Qutuz rode south through the wastelands of Gaza, his heart at ease for the first time in years. He had saved Islam, broken the invincible, restored honor to a world that had forgotten it. But the road home is often more dangerous than the road to war. Around him marched his most trusted captains, men who had knelt beside him in prayer, who had charged beside him into fire. Among them was Baybars al-Bundukdari, the Panther of Egypt. He had fought with brilliance at Ain Jalut, and Qutuz had promised him reward, perhaps Aleppo, perhaps command. But in the long silence of the march, that promise began to rot. Each hoofbeat stirred new suspicion, each mile drew envy closer. Whispers wound through the camp like snakes through sand. Qutuz wears the crown too easily, some said. Will he reward his brothers or rule them? When the column reached the plains near Al-Salakiya, the emirs called upon the Sultan. They said a captured Mongol awaited his judgment, a token of loyalty, a gift for the victor. Unarmed and unguarded, Qutuz stepped forward, trusting the men he had made kings. Then the circle closed. A hand clutched his cloak, steel flashed in the dying light, and the sword of the faith, Saif ad-Din Qutuz, fell to the sand. The desert swallowed his cry. No drums thundered, no horns sounded, only the wind moved, carrying his name across the dunes like a prayer. For a moment, the killers stood in silence, the weight of what they had done pressing heavier than the armor on their shoulders. Baybars looked down at the body of the man who had given him victory. Whether from guilt or calculation, no one could say. They wrapped the Sultan's body in a cloak and lifted him onto a horse. The march turned north once more, not as an army of faith, but as an army of ambition. At the gates of Cairo, Baybars dismounted. The same gates where Qutuz had hung the Mongol envoys now watched the return of his corpse. Crowds gathered in mourning. The people wept. The imams recited the Fatiha. And for a day, Cairo forgot its politics. Baybars ordered that his former master be buried with full honors beside the northern walls of the city he had saved. A tomb was raised, plain but eternal. No throne, no jewels, only stone and silence. And when the prayer was done, Baybars placed his hand on the grave. Perhaps in repentance, perhaps in triumph. History does not tell us which. But the roar of Qutuz did not die in that desert. It lived in every fortress the Mamluks built, in every battle they fought, in every dawn when men swore they would never bow again. The slave who became a the king who became a the martyr who became a legend. Saif ad-Din Qutuz, the lion who roared once and was heard forever.